John Woo is back with his Yuletide shoot-'em-up Silent Night, which marks his first American movie since 2003's Paycheck. Now, in this one, Joel Kinnaman plays a grieving father who, after his son is killed in a drive-by shooting, spends a year training himself to be an unstoppable killer so that he can take some Christmastime vengeance on the men responsible. So, since Woo stopped making American movies after Paycheck, he's mostly focused on the Chinese market, making the widely successful two-part epic Red Cliff, which is well worth seeing, and the less successful romantic epic The Crossing, which kind of vanished and never really got much of a stateside release. He dipped his toe back into action with the 2017 Netflix movie Manhunt, which, despite some virtuoso carnage, played more like one of his big-budget American movies than his old-school Hong Kong ones, and also has a very, very strange jazz soundtrack that's kind of off-putting. In that vein, Silent Night is a return to an older-fashioned kind of John Woo film. Sporting a thriftier budget and an agreeably simple concept, Woo has the opportunity here to revisit some of his favorite themes. This includes the bond between a father and son, which he did so famously in Face Off, and the brotherhood that could emerge between cop and criminal when faced with a truly evil opponent, which of course comes right out of The Killer. But the big selling point here is, despite the Christmas setting, Woo tries to do all this without any spoken dialogue. Indeed, Silent Night is, well, silent, at least in terms of dialogue anyway, although there's plenty of the sounds of gunfire and explosions. While definitely a gimmick, it's helped by the fact that the first scene in the movie, Joel Kinnaman's character Godluck is shot in the neck and no longer has the ability to speak. Yet, the premise is stretched during the first story-driven half of the movie when Kinnaman's supportive wife Zaya, played by Catalina Sandino Moreno, stays mostly silent, as does the nice guy cop played by Scott Mescudi, aka Kid Cudi. The script by Robert Asher Lynn cheats a little bit by having some information relayed via radio reports or by a gimmick where Godluck and his wife communicate via text. It wears a little bit thin in the first half of the movie, but by the second action-driven half of the film, it starts to work much better. Kinnaman and the bad guys just all let their guns do the talking for them, and this is when Woo's prowess as an action director really starts to kick in. While Chad Stahelski's John Wick movies definitely owe a lot to John Woo's style, the director himself didn't opt to make a John Wick-style movie. Kinnaman's character here is a construction worker and an amateur as far as killing goes. Most of the first half focuses on him training himself to shoot guns, fight, and drive a Mustang like Steve McQueen. But John Woo also shows him as being initially out of his depth, and when the violence starts, he really doesn't know what he's doing, giving the action a much scrappier feel than we're used to with a John Woo movie, which is actually quite effective. This aspect works very well and gives Kinnaman more to work with than you'd think, as you get the feeling that his character's mission of vengeance is ultimately a suicidal one. It gives the film a tragic aspect, and you know that he's not ultimately this invulnerable badass. It suits the grim Christmas setting quite well. It's definitely a blue Christmas for everyone here, although maybe you might want to say it's a red one given all the bloodshed. This is definitely a hard R, thank God. The film is built around Kinnaman, who's in virtually every scene, and it's a really good role for him. Kid Cudi also has kind of a cool role as a stock Woo-like character, being the tough cop who'd rather help the Avenger he's ostensibly trying to stop. And when Woo pulls out his signature two-fisting handgun shot, it goes to Kid Cudi. Woo actually tones down his style somewhat with less slow motion than you'd expect, although there's still some, and an absence of dubs. My only issue with Silent Night is that the bad guys are very random, with Woo perhaps trying to make the point that random gang violence is more the culprit here than any one person. The one Godluck wants to kill the most is a gangster named Playa, played by Harold Torres, but he gets a little to no depth. His men are all just foot soldiers for Godluck to blow away. Although there's one great sequence where he's torturing a guy and trying to do away with him, and it kind of plays tribute to this old school Alfred Hitchcock movie called Torn Curtain, in which Paul Newman tried to kill a guy and Hitchcock went out of his way to show you just how difficult that could actually be. It gets a really cool old set piece here, which was one of the best parts of the movie. While not among Woo's best work, Silent Night is still a more than decent comeback for the action auteur. By embracing a different style, Woo proves that as far as action goes, he still has plenty of fresh ideas. While the no-dialogue aspect of the movie does occasionally wear thin, the action is copious and makes this a must-see for both Woo's fans and the younger viewers who, hey, maybe don't know his stuff. And if this happens to be your first John Woo movie, do yourself a favor and check out the following. Watch The Killer, Hard Boiled, A Better Tomorrow 1 and 2, and watch Bullet in the Head. Those are all Hong Kong movies and they're all amazing.